Kosmas, so can you explain us the purpose of you coming here, you staying here? What was that for?
Okay.
And what did you do during your stay?
Okay. There are actually two trips that are happening at the same time. I came from California the last week of February to Moscow and stayed there for a week. That was where I was introduced to other people at the Institute for Bible Translation. It's located in St. Andrew Monastery in Moscow. And I was also given a tour of parts of Moscow by one of the people there. And they installed a special program on my computer that's just for Bible translation. It's a very, very sophisticated program that's only for Bible translation, with lots of different translations and lots of different dictionaries and resources and everything. So that was the first week, and I will be going back to Moscow tomorrow for another week there, where there will be seminars and training sessions and lectures, and our project team will put together a detailed plan for our particular translation project. This is an essential part of the project because it's part of defining what we're doing, and then they make the budget accordingly and that sort of thing. So it's all kind of, this is part of the business part of the project. It's also part of the educational part for us. But in between, there's my month in Gagauzia. Now the reason these are actually two trips is that the Institute for Bible Translation paid for my plane ticket from Moscow to California, and from California to Moscow, and then for the trip back from Moscow to California. But the trip from Moscow to Moldova and from Moldova back to Moscow is paid for by a different group, which is IDNIC, which is a Gagauz foundation to promote Gagauz culture, Gagauz literature, and especially translation of material for the church. And they've paid for all my expenses while I've been in Gagauzia. There's an actual family relationship here because the translator on our gospel translation project is Victor Kopushchu, and his older brother, Father Sergei Kopushchu, has been my guide around Gagauzia, and he's taken me around here.
And what's the purpose? Because the main purpose being here is to rewrite the Bible.
The main purpose of my being in Gagauzia is to become more able to use the Gagauz language, because my role on the translation project is to check the Gagauz translation against the original Greek text. I already know Greek from many years ago. I studied it in university, but my knowledge of Gagauz has been learned mainly from Victor and from a lot of reading and writing over the last 2 years, but I had no opportunities to speak it, and so they wanted to give me 1 month. Actually, they wanted to give me more, but it wasn't possible to work out the time away from the monastery, but to have at least 1 month of speaking Gagauz every day. And so I've done that, and made a lot of improvement.
So what is your impression after this month?
Well,
3 months being every day Gagauzin meeting
well,
people?
it's been a really interesting experience. My spoken Gagauz is a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I didn't say it's going to be wonderful or it's going to be terrible. I said I'm going to go there and see. And so it's been a surprise to me that it's worked as well as it has. I've also learned a tremendous amount about Gagauz culture because we've gone everywhere. I've met all kinds of people.
Where have you been?
I've been living here in Comrat, but I've been to Gagauz, to Beshalma, to Avdarma, to Chadurlunga, to Kupchak. We also went to Alexandrovka, which is across the border in Ukraine. That was an interesting thing because as an American, the Ukraine border guards were very suspicious of me, and there was not very much traffic of people going there, but they kept us there for an hour while they looked very carefully at my passport and say, why does this American want to come to our country right now when there's difficulty, political difficulty with Crimea and everything, and what is he a spy and all this kind of thing. And then, you know, they look at my passport and they put it under a special light and they say these threads are supposed to light up, but there's an inch that doesn't light up, and why not? And they were asking Father Sergei, and he said, why should I know? You know, I don't know anything about threads in this man's passport. But they find, you know, and our explanation, which was the truth, is, well, he's a monk and he's going to visit a monastery. So they finally decided everything was okay, and we went over to that monastery. That's one of 2 women's monasteries that I've visited while I've been here. And when I first started to learn Gagauz, I had an assignment from the abbot of our monastery to see if there were monasteries here, and if so, to contact them and to become friends with them. And those 2 monasteries I wrote letters to 2 years ago. They didn't write back, but I wrote letters to them, and I sent packages with gifts from our monastery. And so then finally, 2 years later, I was able to meet the people there, and it was really wonderful, you know, because you know, they knew who I was. Actually, it was really interesting when I went to Alexandrovka, because at first the abbess didn't make the connection between my visit and the letter and package 2 years ago. And, you know, at first I just got this reaction, which I've gotten from so many people in Gagauzia, that, you know, this is so strange, this American man who speaks our language. And so she was kind of being surprised at that. And then I said, I wrote a letter to you 2 years ago, and she still didn't make the connection. And then I said, and I sent honey and candles from our monastery. And then she said, oh, you're the one that sent the beautiful candles. And she said, your candles are so much more beautiful than the ones we make here. And can you come and visit our candle making place and look at our equipment and look at the supplies we're using and look at the processes we're using and tell us how to improve the quality of our candles. Yeah, and so I did that. And, you know, there were very simple things that would make improvements because they melt down parts of used candles, like we do. I think everybody that makes candles out of beeswax uses the old candles again, but what they don't do that we do is they don't have a sieve to filter out the pieces of dirt. And when you have used candles, you've got sort of like charcoal from the burned parts, and so it turns the wax very dark. And so instead of, you know, a honey-colored wax, they're getting wax that's like the color of coffee. And so I wrote back to our monastery and said, please take a lot of photos and send them to me, and I'll send them to these nuns here in Alexandrovka, and I will also write something in Gagauz with suggestions. And I've written that, but I still haven't gotten the photos from our monastery, but I will be sending those. I'll send them to Father Sergei, and then he will probably take them to over to Alexandrovka.
So always the exchange face to face after writing and so
yeah, it was wonderful to, and you know, there were a lot of face to face encounters with people that I had been in contact with also on Facebook or by email and met for the first time, and that was really great. I spoke on Skype with Father Sergei and Father Sergei and Victor once about 1.5 years ago, and it was the only conversation I had ever had in the Gagauz language before I came. The Gagauz language is part of the Turkic family of languages. It's fairly closely related to the Turkish spoken in Turkey, but it's been very influenced over the century by contact with Greek, Bulgarian, Romanian, and Russian. So it has become in some ways more like a European language than the other Turkic family languages. But I spoke Turkish a long time ago. I learned Turkish about 35 years ago. And so I didn't use my Turkish for a long, long time. You know, when I became a monk, I said to myself, well, you know, this isn't something a monk does, so I'll just leave it aside. And I didn't do anything with Turkish for a long time. But then several years ago, I had an opportunity to spend 4 months in monasteries in Greece, and it included an opportunity to spend a week in Istanbul. And I spoke Turkish again, and I just realized how much I loved the language. So when I came back to the monastery, I asked if it would be okay if I studied it again. And in my study of it, I came across the fact that there was this other language called Gagauz. I'd never heard of the Gagauz before. And then I went to the abbot of our monastery and I said, do you know that there are Turkish people who are Orthodox Christians and have been Orthodox Christians for centuries? And that's when he said, well, do they have monasteries? We must find these monasteries. We must become friends with them. And that was when this happened. That was in about, I think, January of 2012.
And how did you get to meet people here? To make first exchanges with people? Email or
it took a lot of work because I had to do internet searches, and I didn't find anything for a long time. You know, I just there's very little in English about the Gagauz, and then I realized that the name Gagauz is spelled a little bit differently when it's written in Turkish, and so I said, okay, let me use that spelling in the internet search engine, you know, because they spell it Gagavuz. They put a V in the middle. And so I put that in there. Then I started to find articles in Turkish. And then that led me to a website where there was an article about the Gagauz written in Turkish. And I wrote to the webmaster asking him to give my email address to the author of the article, or give the author's email address to me. And instead they gave my email address to Victor Kopuscu, who's a friend of theirs, and Victor answered me right away.
How long has it been with Victor?
This has been a little over 2 years now. I think it began in February of 2012 that we began our exchange.
And can you say why you chose the Orthodox Church instead of the Protestant? I mean, Protestant Church is the main important church in
America. Well, I've come to a point in my life where a lot of things in my life were failing, and I needed to make some big changes. I already knew about the Orthodox Church because I had lived in Greece for 2 years, a number of years before. I wasn't going to church at all then, but I knew about the Orthodox Church, and so the Orthodox Church has a lot of discipline. You know, it seemed like the right place to be in order to make big changes in my life and to have the support of the church, and it's worked.
Have you already been a man of prayer?
I wasn't at that time, but I've become more of a man of prayer as a result of changes that I made in my life. This was 17 years ago.
After what you've seen here, what is your impression first, and what is the most appealing thing that you have in mind when you think of Gagauzia right now?
Well, it's the same things. It's the friendliness of the people, you know, the warmness and open-heartedness.
That's mainly what you have in mind.
That's it. Yes.
It's a work on the Bible. You say you want to focus on one or a few parts of the Bible, or you want to work on the whole Bible? How will you do it?
Here's the way it's going to work. We're going to do the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. After that, we'll see how that goes. After that, maybe we will finish the New Testament. After that, maybe we will do more. Maybe the Psalms next. And we hope that we will be able to do the Bible, but we're not starting out with the project taking on the whole Bible. We're starting out with the project to do a limited thing and then see how it works. You know, a project list like this depends on money, among other things. Each of these projects depends on donations. And the Institute for Bible Translation has many different translation projects underway with different languages. So, instead of taking an enormous project from the very beginning, we're taking a limited project and then seeing if it's going to be possible to follow it by other limited projects until, we hope the whole thing is done.
Do you have a lot of support from churches?
In the United States? Not from the United States. I think the support for this will probably come primarily from people of Gagauzia. That's actually, I think, probably another one of the reasons for my visit here. Not my reason. My reason was to come and study the language, but for the reason that Nick brought me here is that it's been publicity for this project. Every time that I've gone to meet people, we talk about the fact that we're translating the gospel, and I hope this will bring support. Financial support, but also just psychological support. People being in favor of the project, people wanting it to happen, and people saying that it's a good idea.
And from Russia, because you went to Moscow, you will be going to Moscow in a few days?
Yeah, tomorrow.
Is there some support there as well? Do they give you some support, some help there?
Well, really, the only people in Moscow that I know are people in the Institute. So I've spent when I came there, those were the only people that I spent any time with. So I don't really know people in Moscow outside the Institute for Bible Translation. Very small circle, right? For me, because my attentions are very concentrated on this, at least there on this trip.
There's a term you just used, small circle.
Yes.
Is it appropriate to you think, that in America you might be the only person who studied Gagauzian?
Well, I'm not the only person, because there are people that have come here before that I've been in touch with by email and by Facebook who have studied Gagauz. One of them is a friend of Anna's, Adam. He studied Gagauz too. Another friend of ours, Erin, studied Gagauz. She was here on a Fulbright scholarship. Actually, both of them were on separate Fulbright scholarships. Adam came from Indiana University, and Erin came from Harvard University. And there have been other people that have come here. I know a few other people in America that have studied Gagauz a little bit. I think probably there are not very many people who have studied it as much as I have, because it turned out to be something that I love, But when I tried to find other scholars in the United States that could help me with the study of Gagauz, I couldn't find anybody, And the reason I came into contact with Adam in the first place, and with Adam, let's say, is that Indiana University has a department of studying Turkic languages, but there was nobody that taught Gagauz over there. Harvard is another university in the United States that has a Turkic language program, but there's no Gagauz scholars there. There are people who teach modern Turkish, who teach Ottoman Turkish and other things, but Gagauz is not one of the languages taught there. There are a couple of other universities in the United States that have departments of Turkic languages, but as far as I can tell, nobody is studying Gagauz as a main thing. So when I came into contact with people who were studying Gagauz, there was a professor from Indiana University who's a Turkish woman who put me in contact with other people, but they were in other parts of the world.
You said before you came here, you read and studied the language, but did you get to write anything?
I wrote a lot,
In Gagauzian?
I've written a lot
What
in
do you write,
Gagauz.
for example?
I've written short little stories and articles, and Victor Kapushchu has a website which is associated with the cathedral here in Comrat, and almost everything that I've written, which is about 30 pieces, has been published in Gagauz. And that was one of the interesting things about coming here, because he would publish these little stories and little essays that I'd written, and it would have my picture with it, you know, a little photo. And so when I came here, many people recognized me when I walked down the street, you know, because they'd read these things that I'd written. And so I was already a famous literary person when I came here the first day I was here, you know, and it was a very strange experience. And it's been a very interesting experience. I think in a certain way it's opened up a lot more possibilities of meeting people. You know, I've met lots of authors, you know.
And did you, when you studied, you wrote in Gagauzian, you speak in Gagauzian?
I didn't. Until I came here, as I said, I only had that one Skype conversation with Victor and his brother. And so I said, well, we'll see what happens.
you celebrate, have you celebrated in Mass, maybe?
No, not quite. No, yeah, that's gotten exaggerated. In the Orthodox Church, on the afternoon of Pascha, which is also called Easter in English, we read a very short passage from the Gospels in as many different languages as there are people that can do it. In our monastery, we do this every year, just like it's done in Orthodox churches all over the world. In our monastery, we have people that speak various different languages, so, you know, in any given year, on that particular afternoon, it might be done in our monastery. It's been done in French and German and Spanish, Swahili, Japanese, Russian, various other languages. I was doing it in Turkish for a number of years. The only time in the year that I would ever use Turkish was one afternoon, the afternoon of Easter. And then when I started learning Gagauz, I said, okay, well, I'll do it this year in Gagauz. And so the first year that I did that, I had somebody record it, and then I sent that recording to Victor along with some photos, and he made a video out of it and put it on YouTube. And so a lot of people have seen that video on YouTube that's just a couple of minutes long, and they thought we did a whole service in Gagauz, and we didn't. It was just a very short
one of the languages that were
just
used.
one of the languages that we used that one day, and that was it. You know, so people have had a false impression that, you know, we're celebrating the liturgy in Gagauz, and well, no, we can't. We don't do that. And I'm not a priest, so, you know, I obviously I can't do a whole service. I can do the little part that's assigned to me.
Can you say something in Gagauzian? Maybe something about...
How about Zaman Hayrolsun, which is the way we say hello.
Anything about the projects in the Bible? You will be able to come, maybe?
I expect that we will do our work by internet, you know, by email exchanges. And the program that we're using, I mentioned this program that they put onto my computer for Bible translation, is set up to work with people in a group so that you put your comments on somebody else's work and then it's sent to them. You know, that it's a work group. It's a work group sharing program, so that you're sharing folders and that sort of thing. So it might be that I will never see these people in person again. It might be. I don't know. You know, I'm not going to make my plans on it because, you know, as a monk, I can do things only when I'm given permission to do them and that sort of thing. So I can't say, next year I'm going to do this. I don't have my own money as a monk. You know, it depends on invitation, and it depends on, yes, and on permission from the head of our monastery and that sort of thing.
Through the month you spent here, you've met many people. Did you get to talk about other projects, any whatsoever?
Well, I got to talk about other things, you know.
And do you have other projects that came across?
Well, you know, the only thing that I would say it might be a project would be things of mine that I'm just continuing to write things in Gagauz, you know, and You know, I've gotten to know a lot of literary people and artists and that sort of thing. So I'm going to continue to do that to improve my knowledge of the language.